You're one of my favorite producers ever.
Thanks,
like,
man.
I don't hear
That's so kind of you.
I don't see the construction at all, and I find myself sort of breaking down stuff a lot, and I just see like all this sound, but everything is working perfectly with another. It's not just like filling up. I'm having trouble articulating it, but there's a lot of interesting things you do that I can't place how you made something work.
Thank you. That's a huge compliment, and always my goal. And the way that I would describe it is that I am not a visual artist at all. Like, I can't put a brush on a canvas and make it look good. But when I watch videos of a great painter, and they take, you know, all of these strokes and all of these, you know, different solid colors, and they turn it into this beautiful, blurring, blended thing that just looks like a wave. And you saw them do it, and when you saw them do it, it did not look like it was going to turn into a human wave. A lot of that is the truth about music production. The middle process is like a lot of primary colors. It's like a kick drum and a synth bass and an atmospheric synth and vocal layers and a guitar part, and then you just massage them and EQ them and place them and, you know, change their levels. One of the things that I am a big advocate for is that even though I still send everything that I do ultimately to a mixing engineer after I am finished with it, so much of me as a producer is being a mixer, is like where this bass sits with this vocal, with this kick drum, because it's how I know that I have all the ingredients. And if I'm not mixing it, then maybe I have somewhere to go. And like, I was just dealing with this with a song yesterday where I was like, either I still need to add stuff or it's all there and I need to turn stuff down. In that case, I did that. I just turned certain things, I brought things down, I muffled them. A couple times I put like side chain compression on it, and they got out of each other's way. And it just became this kind of solid thing. Because I'm with you. There's something kind of like, my fantasy is that you're just hearing the song. You're not hearing, like, you're not seeing the machinery at work. You're just sort of like experiencing.
I never can. How much is, from your last comment, I'm guessing you're probably someone who's happy with the mix before you send it to mix, like, you know the song works before.
Yeah, usually my mix feedback is like, make it more like my mix when the mixer sends it back. Not always. Like, there are a couple instances where I'll send it to a mixer and I'll be like, you're gonna have to fix some mistakes I made. Like, that's just the way that it works. But yes, you're right. Usually I don't send something in until the mix is great. And I'm not trying to disparage mixing engineers. They are usually able to do like sort of a technical level of clarity and balance. I'm sort of shooting for like emotionality when I record stuff. And so mixers, there's a little bit more like mathematics in mixing, of like just kind of ratios and EQing that I worry less about. And I don't ever send like stuff that isn't how I want it to sound, really.
Well, I generally have it worked out in my head and go like, this is as far as I can take this. And also like, I've worked on this so long that I know all the pieces are there because I heard it in my head. I know that all the different instruments and parts they're playing and where they're playing it. It should all work. Now I just need to get these things out of the way. And that's probably a lot to do with the fact that I don't know how to get them out of their way.
Yeah, I mean, when I first started making music, I was the same. I was hearing everything in my head. And now the further and further I go into making music, partially just because I've made a higher quantity of music now, and partially just because I've learned more. It's like, it's much more about like discovery. It's much more about like looking for something and getting lost along the way and loving something on the way. The amount of times I'm like, I hear this syncopated, bright tone in my head. Let me look through like synthesizer banks, and I play a million samples, and I'm like, well, that's not what I was going for at all, but that's beautiful. And then taking that sound and kind of customizing it and morphing it and, you know, being creative with it is really satisfying.
Do you find writing it as you're producing it helps with that?
Yeah, writing, I've found that like, in terms of being a producer, writing a song as you're producing it is really, really helpful. And it's funny because I used to argue for the opposite thing. I used to be very like a kind of a zealot about it. I used to be like, Well, if you write a song while you're producing it, like you're spending 2 hours on the kick drum and you don't even know if it's a good song. Like you don't even know if the verse is good. But ultimately, I think maybe just like my self-confidence as a writer is higher. And so if I'm writing a song and producing it simultaneously, I'm going to get it all right eventually, or it's going to die in the middle. But yeah, I do find that. I think when you're writing and producing at the same time, you're kind of like everything's being informed by itself. Like I still sit at a piano and write songs a lot, but anything like rhythmic, it's like really useful to have a rhythm going. If you have a rhythm going while you're writing a vocal part, you're going to be more rhythmic in your songwriting.
I generally, I'm just noticing like, well, here's what you do and here's what I don't know why I'm doing like this. If I seem weird, this means a lot to me. Thanks for jumping on the call.
Of course, Aiden. It's all good. You're very sweet to have me on. I appreciate it.